Jones breathing free.
Nick Singleton, Oscar, touchdown. Jeremiah Love trying to go 98.
The wait is finally over. Week 1 of college football season is upon us. Welcome into Got It Covered. I'm Giovanni Heater alongside Raza Umarani, and the wait's over, my friend. We're finally here. College football is finally here.
Well, technically, it arrived a few days ago, right? We had week 0. We had a few games, kind of to get the palate all nice and ready to go. Iowa State, Kansas State, and Dublin was actually a pretty good game. I mean, I know it was very, very sloppy for a while, but you and I had a blast watching that on the old couch together like it was old times. But now we get a full slate of college football with heavyweight fights across the board all weekend, 5 straight days of college football. This is one of the best weekends of the year. Labor Day weekend in college football I'm glad it's a national holiday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is a week 1 slate, like you mentioned, that's stacked. I can't remember the last time that week 1 was this enticing.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple years ago, I remember you had LSU playing Wisconsin at Lambeau, and then there were a couple of other big games, but 3 top 10 matchups within 24 hours or 48 hours of one another is pretty unprecedented. So it's crazy how it's worked out like this, because these matchups are scheduled like a decade in advance. Right. I remember when Ohio State scheduled this Texas matchup, this home and home with them, that was like 2017 or 18. It was a long time ago. And that was when Texas was kind of still going through its dog days. I don't think anybody anticipated 10 years ago this could have been a matchup between arguably the two best teams in the country. So it's fun how it's worked out like this, and it's going to be an absolute blast from Thursday all the way to Monday.
So how this is going to work, we're going to pick the 6 marquee games, in our opinion, that are taking place Saturday through Monday. So we did take out the Thursday, the Friday games. We're focusing on Saturday through Monday, the true weekend, once everybody's off from work, everything like that. And we got a full slate. So let's go ahead and start unpacking things. We'll start with the big one. Texas, number 1 in the country, traveling on the road. They're in Columbus at Ohio State. Ohio State is a 1.5 favorites at home. Texas, you can get them at plus 105. The over-under is 47.5. Raza, I'll let you go first. What you got in this one?
I did talk about it when we talked about the Big Ten and also the SEC for that matter, that I do think Ohio State wins this game. My thought process going into it, now that we're just a few days away, is I don't exactly know how they're going to get there. But considering what I saw in the college football playoff semifinal at the beginning of the year, granted, a lot has changed with both these teams since then. I just have a feeling that each of them first game with a new full-time starting quarterback have lost some on offense, especially on the offensive line. Defenses are going to be maybe a little bit more ahead of the offenses at this point. My favorite play in this game is under the 47.5 number. I mean, this is a game that finished 28-14 back in the playoff, and that was on a garbage time, or not garbage time, but a very late touchdown that Jack Sawyer returned. That was only 42 total points. That was an absolute dogfight. And also, Trayvon Henderson had that long touchdown at the end of the first half to add 7 points that really should not have been allowed by the Texas defense. So when I look at these two teams, I'm like, I've seen so many times programs that, took a while to decide who their starting quarterback was going to be. The defense is probably ahead of the offense. We know how supremely talented both these defenses are. I do think offense will start to figure themselves out in the second half. Honestly, I would love the first half under more than anything else, but I do think this game goes under the 47.5 number. Give me Ohio State by a 23-20 final score.
All right. He's taking Ohio State. He's taking the under. The bet I like in this game, plain and simple, is the Texas money line, because I picked Texas to go into Columbus and win this game. A lot of people are high on Arch, and I'm kind of joining that camp. I think we saw flashes of brilliance last year. I think he has what it takes. He's just kind of been groomed for the moment like this. And I actually like that we've seen more out of Arch than we've seen out of Julian Sayin. And then there are question marks on the defensive side of the football with how much was lost on the Ohio State side of things. I also feel like Now, I will say in Columbus, they've done a really nice job of, like, last year was last year, flushing that and moving on to 2025 and this being a new team and a new journey and everything like that. But I don't care who you are. Unless you're the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, Nick Saban, Alabama, there's almost a sense of complacency that sneaks in, whether you like it or not, following a national championship. Texas lost to this team in the college football playoff. And they've still kind of had this trajectory where they're going up like this. I just feel like it's time for the Longhorns to win that big game and kind of stamp their foot in the ground, because they had that chance last year a couple of times, right? And it didn't happen. SEC championship game, they cough it up to Georgia. Ohio State in the playoff, they cough that one up as well. This is now their chance to week one say, we're number one for a reason. And I think that they're going to do that. I like Steve Sarkisian. I just like everything that Texas has to offer. I like the Longhorns to show that that they're legit. So I'm taking Texas, and that's my play. Texas plus 105.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think maybe we thought we got that it game out of Texas when they beat Michigan in Ann Arbor last year, but that game ended up meaning a heck of a lot less than we thought it did, because Michigan wound up being a fraction of the team that won the national championship the year prior. So I definitely understand that perspective. I also think, like, you're right that we've actually seen Arch Manning play somewhat meaningful snaps, and he is a very supremely talented quarterback. Julian Sain was a 5-star recruit as well. So, like, I'm kind of thinking back to when CJ Stroud made his first start for Ohio State. That first half, the first 3 quarters really for Ohio State were very jittery for Stroud. He was missing a lot of throws. And then in the fourth quarter, he kind of locked it in. Ohio State pulled away from Minnesota on a Thursday night. So I definitely see a world where maybe the early jitters for Sayin create a bit of a gap for Texas that Ohio State might not be able to close. I just think game in Columbus, tough road environment, and a better team than Texas faced last year when they went to go play Michigan. So I'm taking the home team and trusting the national champs to begin the title defense with a dub.
There you go. Let's go ahead and move on to the other noon game. This one is going to be on ABC instead of course, you can find Texas and Ohio State on Fox. But you got your noon game in Syracuse and number 24 Tennessee down in Atlanta. It's the Aflac Kickoff from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 10 wins last year for the Syracuse Orange. Tennessee on the other side, blown out by Ohio State as the 9 seed in the first round of the college football playoff. You know all of the offseason drama. Nico Iamaleava, he essentially holds out for more money. Josh Heupel sticks to his guns. Iamaleava is now at UCLA being compensated for about half of what he would have made if he would have just stayed tight at Tennessee. And then you just kind of go down the list of how things unfold. Joey Aguilar, who spent just a semester at UCLA, never took a true snap in a game after coming from Appalachian State. He's now the starting quarterback at Tennessee. And despite all that, the identity of the Volunteers last year wasn't the passing game. It wasn't the quarterback. It was their ability to run the football and their hard-nosed defense. And that's what they're going to look to lean on, because they're playing a Syracuse team that was fantastic offensively, had the nation's leading passer at quarterback, breaking ACC passing records. But the defense was a struggle, and the offense was able to kind of hide a lot and make up for a lot where the defense had its setbacks. Particularly, Syracuse really struggled to stop the run, allowing over 5 yards a carry last season. So I think that's the big matchup here. Can Tennessee run the ball, or can Syracuse, stack the box and say, hey, Joey Aguilar, who's been known to be turnover prone, if you look, he had a better 2023 than he did 2024, and he had double-digit interceptions last year. Can they have a situation where they say, we're forcing you to beat us. We're forcing you to throw it and beat us because we're going to stack the box and take away the run. We'll see.
Yeah, this is a fascinating matchup. I do think that Tennessee will be able to maybe have a better downfield passing attack this year with Aguilar, who was a bit of a turnover machine at App State, but there's no denying that they were able to throw the ball all over the place. Now, granted, that's App State. Now it's Tennessee. Things are going to be more challenging. But considering that both of these offenses were such high flyers a year ago, and I do kind of like still the personnel that Syracuse has, even though there's so much turnover, I think my second favorite play here is the over at 51.5. I think there's
Okay.
going to be a lot of points in this game. I think
Really?
it could be. I think it could be the anti-Ohio State Texas, where the first half is a little bit more of a fireworks gun show. Whether that's like one of these new quarterbacks throws a pick six, or there's a 75-yard touchdown, open up a drive. I could see this game being 20-17, 21-14 at halftime, and kind of creep towards that 51 number. But I do think if I had to pick something straight up, I think I would probably take Tennessee and swallow the 2 touchdowns at minus 13.5. I think it might be a bit too steep of a first game with all of the changes at Syracuse. For what it's worth, Tennessee always seems to be one of those teams that starts out really hot before fizzling out, like when the weather starts to get cold. They're going to have a huge advantage in the crowd down in Atlanta. Syracuse is practically going to be playing a road game, I feel like, in Atlanta. I just feel like the number's a little big. I could see this game finishing by a margin of exactly 14, maybe like a 35-21 situation in favor of the Volunteers. I just think this is a bit too steep of a hill to climb in game one for Syracuse. So if that doesn't happen, if it's a little closer, I can definitely see it being high scoring, definitely more high scoring than the other noon game.
See, I'm going against you here. I'm going to take Syracuse to win it because that's what I predicted throughout this entire time when we've been doing our shows, right? I said Syracuse is going to have a 7-5 year. I said they're going to probably lose a game they shouldn't, but they're also going to, there's too many opportunities for them to get an upset. There's too many opportunities for them to beat a really good team with how difficult their schedule is. And I just think there's no better opportunity than week one because of the lack of tape, because of the lack of cohesion with Joey Aguilar making his first start. Let's like make no mistake. There's a big jump from playing at App State to playing in the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's see what this looks like, right? And I also like that, they went with Stephen Jelly at quarterback at Syracuse, and it's going to allow them because he has a similar skill set, probably not as talented, but a similar skill set to that of Kyle McCord, who led the nation in passing last year. So they don't have to formulate the offense around their quarterback like they likely would have had to do with Ricky Collins and formulate it around his skill set. Now you can kind of plug and play with Angeli. And if the offensive line can hold up and he can kind of just sit back there and zip the ball around the yard, he has taken some significant stats. This guy came in for an injured Riley Leonard in the college football playoff against Penn State last year. He's played in a big stadium, an NFL stadium. He's played in a big game. I'm not saying he's not going to be nervous. I'm not saying he's going to be perfect by any means. I feel good about him being the starting quarterback there because Jeff Nixon's offense is going to be able to run similarly to the way that it did last season, if all goes well. And it's just a situation, again, where it's week one. There's question marks across the board. So many of the experts are saying we don't even want to touch this game with actual money because it's just who knows type of thing.
Exactly.
I'm going to take Q's. Why not? Week one's fun. So, and look behind me.
That's a good point. I'm actually really interested to see what Syracuse's offense looks like in this game. Are they going to drop Angeli back 60 times the way McCord did every Saturday last year? Like, I don't know that
because they're going to be able to run it.
I would hope that would be the case.
Maybe not against Tennessee, though, is the problem. Running the ball against Tennessee is going to be one of the tougher matchups of the year.
But I mean, that's a unit that lost, like Omar Norman Lott in the middle. They lost James Pierce Jr. off the edge. So, is Syracuse going to be able to run the ball effectively? What does the percentage in the split look like between the pass and the run? Honestly, more than anything, that's what I'm interested to see because Syracuse was such an abnormally pass-heavy team last year that allowed McCord to lead the nation in passing last year. And like you said, break all those ACC passing records. Angeli might not be that type of quarterback, but is that still the offense they want to run? I'm very interested to see what they look like.
I think the big thing, last note from me on this game, Tennessee's, Dylan Sampson's gone, right? This is a guy that had 258 carries, almost 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns. Yeah. Like, they don't know what they're getting at running back. Now, Tennessee's been up there in recruiting rankings since Josh Heupel got there. His first class was 2022, essentially his first real class, and they've been top 15 in the country year after year. So, they're reloading, but again, there's question marks. On top of it, they lost their 3 leading pass catchers from a year ago. So, new quarterback, lost your running back, lost your top 3 pass catchers, one of them being Squirrel White, who's going to be a guy we talk about later with his game against Alabama coming up this weekend. They have question marks too, and that's why nobody really knows with this game.
Yeah, it's a total toss-up, right? Dante Thornton, high-profile receiver now in the NFL, might be the Raiders wide receiver one. Squirrel White now at Florida State. Dylan Sampson now with the Browns. Going to be a lot of turnover on both sides. So like in my mind, I'm just like, okay, who do I trust? And it seems so naive, but it's like I gotta trust the SEC. I gotta trust Josh Heupel and stuff like that. So it's gonna be very interesting. I hope there's a lot of points because I think this will be a really entertaining game.
I'll tell you this. So I'm hosting the pre and post game show for Syracuse football on Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio Syracuse. And yesterday I went to practice for Syracuse football to grab a couple of interviews to air on our pregame show before kickoff with Syracuse and Tennessee on Saturday. And a couple of the players had talked about it, and you could hear it. And then Fran Brown, who knows what he's doing, he comes out and walks right past the media up the stairs, singing top of his lungs, "Good old Rocky Top, Tennessee." And they're the players were saying the entire practice all week at full go, they can barely hear each other talk. They're just blaring Rocky Top at practice. Do with that what you will, but my point being is if anybody gets a team fired up and ready to punch up and play to another level, Fran Brown showed last year that he's that guy. So I'm curious to see how it all shakes out.
It'll be a fun one.
All right, let's talk about our next game that we just mentioned. Number 8, Alabama on the road to take on Florida State. Did you see that drone footage of Doak Campbell Stadium? If you didn't, check it out. They put it out on Twitter and social media and stuff. Drone footage of the newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium. It really does look spectacular, and it's going to play host to this big matchup. Bama, 13.5-point favorites. You can get Florida State at plus 425 on the money line. Over-under set at 50.5. I'll go first. I'm taking Bama, and I'm taking them to cover at 13.5. I'm high on Alabama this year. I have them going 11-1 in the regular season. I have them in the college football playoff. I have them just missing the SEC championship game. LSU will be there because LSU will go into Bryant-Denny and beat them week 11. I know that feels like an eternity away, but I'm taking Bama. I'm taking Bama to cover. I think Florida State will be improved. But after seeing the debacle last year, I don't know what to put stock in that. And then I think Thomas Castellanos has a little bit of a diva edge to him. Sometimes that can be good. Sometimes it's not. I think Bama goes in there and smacks him around, to be honest with you. I'm taking them to cover 13.5.
Yeah, I like Bama to win this game pretty comfortably. Honestly, I don't hate the number at 13.5. Like usually a number like that kind of spooks me a little bit. What a fall from grace, by the way, that like I remember thinking, oh, Alabama's going to Florida State in a couple of years. That game is going to be so good. And now it's like we're all expecting them to get mollywopped. I like, though, the number I like more here is the under. This strikes me as one of those games that's like 31-10. Like, yeah, Alabama wins very comfortably, but it's maybe a situation like last year when, I don't know if you remember, but Alabama went to Wisconsin earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And they won like 42-3 or something. And while that might also play into the hands of the number with Alabama, this just strikes me as a more safe play, just in case there's some sort of stat pad towards the end of the game, like 35-10, 38-10. Something like that feels like the final outcome in Tallahassee. I just think Bama's way too talented on both sides of the ball. And like you said, Florida State should be improved. I would sure as hell hope that they'll be improved. But this is it's a pretty steep one in their first game. So if they play it close, then they play it close. That's why I'm kind of hesitant with Bama, because at least like comparing Florida State to like what we were talking about with Syracuse, Florida State probably has more talent on paper than a team like Syracuse does, which makes it possible that at home they might be able to play this thing close. So I like the under at 50.5, but I do still like Bama to win comfortably.
How about number 9 LSU on the road at number 4 Clemson? Clemson's 3.5-point favorites in their version of Death Valley. LSU can get them at plus 150. The over/under at 57.5. Raza, who you got in this one and why?
I hate the spread. I hate the hook. The hook is just like looking at it is going to keep me up at night.
It is a rough hook.
And then I don't know if it's just me. The total feels really high for the caliber of defenses that are going to be in this game. I understand LSU's
I
defense has
agree.
been a little suspect in the last couple of years, but it's vastly improved this year. They might have the best pass rushing duo in the country with Patrick Payton and Harold Perkins. And then Clemson's defense obviously has 5 first-round picks on it. So I thought 57.5 is a ridiculously high number. So I hate the hook. I hate the
But it's
total.
one of those numbers. It's not even to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but it's one of those numbers where like you look at it and it just seems so outrageous that like somebody knows something we don't. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
mean,
Like when you see
it's
those numbers and you're like,
yes.
that's too fishy to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I think it's more of a reflection of the caliber of offenses than the
Sure.
lack of caliber of defense. But if I don't like the spread and I don't like the total, I think Clemson wins the game. So I'm just going to take them straight up at minus 175 on the money line. I think that being at home is such a huge advantage. Obviously, LSU plays in a Clemson Death Valley type of stadium every single week in the SEC. So
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be rattled by it necessarily, but I do think that Clemson wins a very close game. I have them winning by 3 points, which is why I hate the hook, because I would love to take Clemson at like minus 1.5, the same way I took Ohio State minus 1.5.
Sure.
But the number is just like so finicky for me. I think Clemson wins this thing straight up. Probably, like I said, with Ohio State, like a 23-20, maybe a 27-24 type of final score. But everything is so wishy-washy here, so I'll just take Clemson straight up.
I have Clemson going 12-0. In fact, I have, as we know, all 4 the top seeds in the college football playoff going in at 12-0. That was one of my big bold takes on the season. So I have Clemson winning the game. I'm not going to take the spread though at 3.5. It's the hook for me. I think it's a 3-point margin or less. So I'm not going to take the spread, but I'll take Clemson to win the game. And yeah, that's what I like. If this game was at LSU, we're picking LSU. Like it's just one of those games.
100%. Yeah.
But it's not.
I definitely would.
Yeah, it's in Clemson. So we move on. Virginia Tech against number 13, South Carolina. Game 2 of the Aflac kickoff down in Atlanta. South Carolina 7.5-point favorites. Virginia Tech, you can get them at plus 240 on the money line. 52.5 is the over/under. What a weekend in Atlanta, because both my teams are playing. Syracuse and Virginia Tech are alma mater, which is pretty cool that we get to say that now. Hokies, obviously there's some extra storylines here with Shane Beamer, his dad, legendary head coach Frank Beamer. Shane grew up in the Virginia Tech program, started his coaching career in the Virginia Tech program, has made a name for himself at South Carolina. Game means a lot to a lot of people. I was a little surprised South Carolina is only 7.5-point favorites. And for that, I'm sorry to my alma mater that I love dearly, but I have South Carolina covering the 7.5. I think that they could win this by 10 is pretty much my estimation. I think it's a 10-point win for South Carolina. Could be more.
We finally agree on something for once. I also like South Carolina in the points. I think that it's a situation where there's a lot of knowns with the Gamecocks versus a lot of unknowns with the Hokies. And Virginia Tech might be without one of their best defensive players in this game, Caleb Woodson, who was arrested over last weekend with the DWI. His status for the game is in question. He was stripped of his captaincy. I think
he's going to play.
Yeah, but there's a distraction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and you just don't want any distractions.
I just think Brent Pry would have said he's not going to play if he wasn't going to play. Instead, he was like, yeah, we're still deciding that.
I think he could. I think it would be such a boost for the Virginia Tech defense. I'm really interested to see what this Hokies offense looks like under Philip Montgomery. I think Kyron Drones, I feel like I was kind of dunking on him when we did our ACC preview. I do think he could be in for the best year of his career. I would hope that that's the case. But like all these new backs, all these new receivers, just like I said, a lot of unknowns. And I think Lenora Sellers is going to be in the top 7-ish of Heisman voting this year. He's such a matchup nightmare. And you can kind of throw Thomas Castellanos in the bin from last year, but Virginia Tech really struggled against a Russian quarterback week 1 in Diego Pavia. He gave them nightmares. And any other Russian quarterbacks they faced last year, they tended to struggle with a little bit. Lenoris is 10 times the player that Pavia is, with all due respect. And I do think South Carolina has a lot of talent offensively that's going to make Kyron Drones a little uncomfortable. I mean, you're going to have a guy in Montavious Cunningham at right tackle lining up against Dylan Stewart. And that kind of keeps me up at night. I think Stewart could wreak havoc in this game. I think Sellers could wreak havoc in this game. 10, you said, as a margin, I feel like is honestly closer than I would have predicted. I think South Carolina wins this game by like closer to 20. I would probably take like 31-14.
Well, that's why the 7.5 shocked me, you know.
Yeah, I thought they would be double-digit point favorites as well. So Vegas, I appreciate you putting respect on our name, but typically we're able to have a good read on these things. So
we've been around that program quite a bit the last 4 years.
Too much.
Yeah. Brent Pry 1-11 in one-score games.
Mm.
So if it gets to a one-score game, it's wraps. It's wraps.
That's true. That is true.
So we know that. Oh, my camera is apparently drifting. That's very nice, Razo. Why don't you get us started for the next pick, our final pick?
Our sixth and final pick, Sunday night at Miami in Miami Gardens, Florida. Hard Rock Stadium, a place that we're all too familiar with now at this point. Notre Dame, number 6, Fighting Irish at the number 10 Hurricanes, a rebirth, if you will, of Catholics versus convicts. I remember when these two played in the regular season back in 2017 when Miami was on that resurgence tour. Who was their quarterback? It was like Malik Rozier. They had Braxton Berrios at receiver. Like that team was so much fun, and they put the smackdown on Notre Dame in that game. Now that was damn near a decade ago, but you got to think videos of that game.
Best we've ever seen at Rock Stadium.
Oh, no question. That was all Miami. The celebs were out. It's like every celebrity in the state of Florida was there. You had Michael Irvin doing crazy things on the sidelines. It was awesome. But that was then, and this is now. Notre Dame, a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Pretty good respect for Miami from Vegas there. Yeah. Miami just plus 110 on the money line. So Vegas likes this one to be pretty close. The total's 49.5. Catholics versus convicts, part 3 or 4, I guess you could say. What's your read on this one?
Give me the Catholics. Give me the Catholics. Yeah, I just think it's a situation where Notre Dame's been there, man. Like, you're talking about a team that just played for a national championship. I think there's a true scenario where maybe, I know you had a tight quarterback battle and DJ Carr ended up winning out and people maybe thought he would have won the job a little bit sooner. I think there's a chance you upgrade at quarterback. Like, Riley Leonard was a good quarterback at Notre Dame. I think he was more like serviceable than like elite though. You know what I mean?
He was limited.
Yeah, I think there's a scenario where if DJ Carr plays out the way you're hoping, you could have upgraded at quarterback. I think Jeremiah Love is the freakiest athlete in college football, not named Jeremiah Smith. I think he's just such an X factor for that offense. It's a defense that's going to come at you, and they're just so well coached. I mean, just look what has been built in South Bend. It's been like this, and it kind of culminated with a national championship appearance last year. And it just feels like they're not done. I have this team making serious noise in the college football playoff. If they won the national championship at the end, wouldn't be surprised. We don't talk about them enough because to their own fault, and I'll always hate it, they're not in a conference.
Exactly.
So I don't even feel bad that they don't get the discussion and the love of some of the other teams, especially the ones in the SEC and the Big Ten. But I just think it's going to be too much for Miami to handle. And I also think the game being at Hard Rock Stadium doesn't mean anything. I hope they pack it. I hope they pack it like 2017. I do. I don't think they will because that stadium is never full. It really isn't. No matter, it could be prime time, and it is prime time. It's the season opener prime time against a team that just played in the national championship last year. And it's just not the same. It's kind of like Duke basketball or, you know, an example like that, the Yankees, where Miami football it's a national brand or a worldwide brand. There's fans everywhere, but the people in Miami, a lot of them don't care. Like, it's not a college football city, and it's so spread out. Like, for the students, it's an hour to get from campus in Coral Gables to Hard Rock Stadium, which is in Miami Gardens. Like, it's not close. They don't feel it. So I don't think there's that much of a home field advantage. And Notre Dame's been there, seen that, done that. How many neutral sites did Notre Dame play on last year? And every year, for that matter, they're playing a big game on a neutral site because they get invited to a bunch of events. Then they're in the college football playoff for these massive bowl games. And Notre Dame's there all the time. And I just think that I think Notre Dame's going to go in there and take care of business. I think they're going to limit Miami's possessions. And Miami's not going to have enough room to make mistakes. Like, it's going to be suffocating because they're not going to have the ball that much. Notre Dame's going to bleed out this game. I like Notre Dame to cover the 2.5. In fact, I like Notre Dame by, I'd say, at least a touchdown. I think I'd put it at a touchdown. Like, give me like 6.5 or something like that, and I'd feel good. So I like Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Between their ability to run the ball with Jeremiah Love, which obviously speaks for itself, I do worry. You worry about all these teams, except for like a Clemson, if you will, about the talent that they lost in the offseason. But their ability to control the game, as you said, maybe limit Miami's possessions. I don't know what to expect out of Carson Beck in this game, because there's a chance Carson Beck comes out here and shuts us all up.
He might.
We've been giving him more flack than credit this offseason. And he has big shoes to fill with Cam Ward departing for the NFL. Miami's obviously a very talented team. I think they retained a little bit more, maybe from a quantity standpoint, than Notre Dame did. But I do think Notre Dame retained more from a quality standpoint, particularly with Jeremiah Love. I also like this game to be a little more low scoring. Again, 2 new quarterbacks, and who knows what to expect out of CJ Carr. But I also like Notre Dame minus 2.5. I'm with you on it being maybe a touchdown margin. I could see this being maybe like a 23-17 final score, a little bit more low scoring, definitely entertaining. If the stadium is packed out, it's going to be largely Notre Dame fans because they travel better than arguably any fan base in all of college football. So I'm expecting a fun environment in Miami, no matter whose fans are in the stands. And I'm expecting a Notre Dame win. So I'll also take them with the 2.5.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where, like, Miami, Carson Beck side, look how much they lost on the offensive side of the football. Like, that wide receiver room looks completely different. There's no Xavier Restrepo, it's not the same team. So I think that there's going to magically come out. But I will say this: I'm taking Notre Dame. I would love to see Miami win this game. I would love to see. I think it would be great for college football and terrific for the ACC if Miami were to win this game. So I'll root for the Canes, but I just think Notre Dame can cover that in half.
Yeah, it would be great for the ACC, especially if you have a situation where earlier in the week, Syracuse loses to Tennessee, Virginia Tech loses to South Carolina. What if Clemson loses to LSU? What if Georgia Tech loses to Colorado?
We've talked about
if Miami were to pick up
exactly week for the ACC.
All of that is very possible too. So if Miami were to pick up the slack in this game, that would go a long way for the ACC. I think if Clemson and Miami both lose this weekend, that would be troublesome.
All right, that wraps up our show. Picking our week 1 picks right here on Got It Covered. Enjoy your college football weekend. It's finally back. Brother, till next time.
Till next time, let's do it.